All right, everybody, here with me is Conor Murphy. As I said before, he's got quite the unique background in the fitness industry. So, Conor, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having
Um,
me.
yeah, as I said, he's got a background with CrossFit. He's been to the CrossFit Games. He's been the head trainer at Reebok World Headquarters. He's been a celebrity trainer. He works as a managing partner for Big Night Fitness. He's got this WODs on Waves thing going on. So, uh, Connor, you have such a unique path. So, how did you get here? What brought you into this world of fitness and blending all these things together? That is very visionary and something most people probably haven't thought about before.
It's probably a multitude of things. Starting off, that my parents were really into fitness. So my dad and my mom were in the bodybuilding world when I was growing up and young. And my dad used to manage gyms, and so we were always inside and out of gyms. My mother was a high level elite gymnast, and then did private training when we were growing up. So it was like we were always in and out of gyms. And then, growing up wanting to play sports, and it was like, hey, here's the discipline needed, and here's what you can do to enhance what, to get yourself ahead of everyone else that you're competing against. So it was always in there, maybe not doing everything the right way, but at least the knowledge of you're going to need to put in work in order to here's the input and here's the output. If you want the output, you got to have the input. And then when I was actually going through, I was previously in the Navy. So I enlisted in the Navy right out of high school. And I met a guy named William Burnett, call him Billy Burnett. He was a prior Ranger who was going through the same training I was. And he was like, he's like, you got to try this stuff out. There's this stuff called CrossFit. And I'm like, all right, cool. What are we doing? And this guy could have been like, hey, we're gonna go outside and just do cartwheels and it's gonna make you fitter. And I would have listened to anything this guy said. He was the coolest guy I knew. And the first workout was pistols, which is a single leg squat, and then ring dips, which is dips on rings from straps. So essentially a frictionless plane. So it's not quite as stable as doing them on the parallel bars. And I was able to do some of these things that kind of came naturally to me. Like a one-legged squat, sometimes people have to work towards the flexibility and the positioning to get there, the strength to get out of the bottom of the squat. And I just so happened to kind of have those things in my back pocket to be able to perform this. And he was like, bro, he's like, you're amazing at this. And I'm like, all right, well, what's our workout the next day? And that's kind of how I got into CrossFit. I also had another one of our instructors who I had asked, hey, how do I get more work done? I want to be fitter and better prepared for the next steps of training. And he told me, hey, CrossFit.com. And so I had this instructor McKinney, who's telling me to go to CrossFit.com. And then I have Billy Burnett, who's like, the most alpha, amazing person I've ever met. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to get into. So throughout training, that was something that was kind of utilized. That word CrossFit was thrown around a bit. This is in 2007, 2008. And I incorporated it maybe one or two times a week. I'd look at CrossFit.com. They'd throw out a workout of the day. I knew nothing about how it was supposed to look, right? I didn't understand stimulus of a workout. Like, hey, here's the adaptation we're looking to get from the stimulus that it is. And, there'd be a workout, it'd be Grace, which is classic CrossFit workout, which is 30 clean and jerks for time. And the first time I did it, I could barely power clean and jerk 135 pounds. So it took me 27 minutes. And I was like, cool, I did this workout. And then, you meet some athlete and they're like, oh yeah, I actually did that one in 5 minutes. And you're like, maybe scaling down to do that in less weight. So it was like this whole learning journey. But I was so inspired by trying new things, having every day be something that I may not be capable of. And I felt like I was just acquiring all these skills that were now coming in and could potentially come in handy in the job field I was going down. So that was where kind of like the obsession part with doing new things and having new challenges rather than the typical, sets and reps and movements that I was doing at the gym. And not to say that that wasn't effective, but for how I was training, this was going to be the most effective methodology. And from there, I suffered an injury that kept me from, it took me out of my job field. And the only thing that I really knew outside of that was doing CrossFit workouts. So I ended up, the Navy actually paid for me to do my CrossFit level 1 certificate course. And so I went to the course and I'm like, man, I can't wait to show everyone how many skills I have, not realizing that that wasn't the point of the course. And I went there and just had my mind blown by the professionalism, by the knowledge, and by really the ideology and methodology that they were teaching at this introductory course. And meanwhile, I think I know all this stuff about CrossFit because I've been doing the workouts for the last 3 years. And it was like, wow, like there is so much more to this. And it really kind of put the foundation together for what I was trying to build. And I remember after I did the course, it was old school. So like you took a test at the end of it, they graded it. And then when you were leaving, you got this manila folder. And if you opened it up and you had a sheet of paper in there, it was like you passed. If not, it was like, this is a participation, like you went through the course, but you didn't pass. And I remember looking at this sheet of paper, almost being a little bit lost because of not being able to do the one thing I wanted to do in life in the military. And I had this sheet of paper and I was like, you know what? This has done some really cool things for me. And the red shirts, the seminar staff team members were, I mean, I was like, that's a goal of mine. I want to be able to do that job. I want to give to other people what they just gave to me, which was this inspiration, this hope from like what we talked about earlier, that care, the empathy and the passion towards what they were doing. And from there, it's just been in gear CrossFit in all aspects of my life. And it looks different, depending on what we're doing. But I mean, it's just been locked in gear and it has taken me to places that I could have never imagined.
Yeah, you've kind of been all over. You worked in St. Thomas for a bit. You came over here to Boston. Um, so tell me about that. Like, how did CrossFit get you? Because I think for a lot of people, and as I said, we have a lot of students and people that aspire to be in the fitness or physical therapy worlds, movement professional worlds. Um, where's CrossFit brought you as far as your career goes and such? Because you've gotten to quite a high level without having a formal education in the exercise science field. So how did you get there?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I always from the start after I finished that course, I was like, I've got the ticket, I've got the knowledge, I know the mechanics, I know the points performance of these movements. I'm good. And the more I've grown, the more I realize like I know nothing. It's like the more the more you know nothing. And so at the time, I was transitioning out of the Navy, and there was there's like a grace period where you have medical appointments and there's stuff you have to do. And I had kind of thrown my name in the hat for internship or part-time coaching opportunities. And I was working at a gym, and it's called CrossFit PB at the time, and then it moved to San Diego Athletics. But these two guys, Anders and Brian, who both were very, very smart, both had high level degrees in exercise science and in physiology, just kind of mentored under them and coached and did workouts. And then I ended up coaching at a gym. And then when I got out of the Navy, I had friends that had moved down to St. Thomas that were just having a ball. They weren't fitness guys. They weren't military guys. They were just really, really genuine and fun people to be around. And I was like, here we go. I sold everything I had. I went to St. Thomas. I had my backpack. I had a sea bag, like a Navy sea bag full of clothes, and I had a gun. And I was like, I'm good to go here. And I was doing CrossFit and I'm like, hey, maybe I can bring CrossFit down to the Virgin Islands, down to St. Thomas, because there was no aspect of fitness down there. And when I mean no aspect of fitness, I mean, they had a couple of gyms that were just like your open gyms and, like open gym, you go in, some people are working out, but it's this vacation town. And most of the money is made off of tourism. And there's cruise ships that come in and they unload thousands of people off, and then they bring thousands of people back, and then they go off to sea. And there's people that are staying in hotels, and then there's stateside locals, people who have moved from the States to either work in tourism or do something on the island. I mean, St. Thomas is small. It's 14 miles long by 4 miles wide. I mean, it's a relatively small place with a recorded 70 or 80,000 people on it. And
Wow.
I got down there and I was like, you know what? I want to bring CrossFit here. And I had some connections with the Marriott down there. And we were going to start off, I was just going to run these like quasi CrossFit classes for the people who were paying the resort fee that were staying at the hotel. So I was kind of working the hotel side of things. And then I was doing my own workouts on the beach. I mean, I had to stay fit. I first 3 days, I just drank rum and hung out with my buddies down there. And I've got like 3 of those days in me before I'm like, I need to work out. Like I have to do it in order to feel better. And started picking up some more people that were just seeing me do it on the beach. Hey, I want to join in. Come on in. And then I had a woman, she approached me and she was like, hey, I actually did CrossFit with this Navy SEAL guy at his house. And I'm like, one, no one knows what CrossFit is. Two, it's very unlikely that some random guy is a Navy SEAL who's doing this. So I was like, you know what? I'd love to meet this guy. So here I am like, oh man, I can't wait to expose this guy. And we are at a bar, of course, in St. Thomas. We're at a bar one night and my friend Christy is like, oh, this is the guy, Chris. And I like look across the bar and I see some guy who's just like, quiet, but just looks the part. And I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's probably, and I go up to him and we start chatting and he asked me about like my background and I kind of talked to him. And I mean, this is me coming up about having like a very short career in the Navy, kind of like pressing a guy being like, oh, what did you do? And this guy was like 16 years active duty, 8 years on DevGru, SEAL Team 6. I mean, this just like the most badass dude. So we leave this conversation and I'm like, man, this guy's kind of a dick. And then he's like, same thing. He's like, this guy's a chump. But we had agreed to train the following morning. We were both having drinks. And it was kind of that test of like, hey, if you say you're going to do something, are you going to do it? So I show up at his house, and he has all this equipment. I have no equipment. I'm just doing bodyweight stuff. And so we start chatting and it's like, all right, here's this like hero workout we're going to do, which CrossFit is a really unique thing in remembrance of heroes who died in the line of duty who did CrossFit. They do these memorial workouts for them, and they're usually a little bit longer workouts, usually a little bit more of a grind, not quite as like shorter, high intensity, but in remembrance of that person. It's a really, really cool community thing. And there's some guidelines about what has to be a hero workout. But so him and I go head to head on this workout. It was a long workout. And I think at like the very end, we're like sprinting towards the end right next to each other. It like ended with a 200-meter run. But of course, in St. Thomas, there's hills. We finished the workout. We're both exhausted and we kind of like made eye contact. And there was this bro moment of like, all right, let's do this together. So him and his wife, they affiliated the house. We ended up getting a gym. We ended up having like 160 members and the most incredible community you can imagine. There was, and I say this as not a euphemism. I say this like literally there were classes where we had drug dealers and federal agents working out together in the same class. It was like the dynamic of you'd have a boat captain, you'd have a nanny, you'd have a Zumba instructor, you'd have someone who worked in finance. And, it was because of the nature of St. Thomas, everyone's background were different, but they had this one care, and it was fitness. It was that they were improving the quality of their life through fitness, and through these difficult workouts, they had this shared suffering, and it just created this like cohesive group of people that were almost outsiders for everyone else. Everyone would always party in St. Thomas, but on a Sunday, like on a boat trip, and people like, oh, we're doing shots, and people be like, oh, I have CrossFit tomorrow morning. It was kind of this like, oh, CrossFit, oh, I'm healthy. But it was so cool that we had this group. And granted, people would still go out and drink and party and do their thing, but it was this care concern that they knew that their other friends, their gym buddies, were always going to show up and they were going to be there. And how I describe the environment, I know I'm like, I just always get sucked into this because it was such a unique thing that I was able to be a part of, the environment that Chris and Jen and one of our other coaches, Jared, and myself got to create. So Chris Irwin, he's the guy that I'm referencing, just, went to Naval Academy, was like, oh, sure, I'll try to be a SEAL, and goes through and just does all these incredible things. Also can play the guitar and sing. He's just one of those guys where you're like, oh, figures. So he's like, I'm going to go to Iggy's and just, play a little set for an hour if anyone wants to come. So we put it out for our gym members, and we had, I'm not kidding, 100 people show up at this beach bar to listen to Chris play, because that was the support that people had for each other. There was a walk. It was like a walk against gun violence. It was like a walk or run 5K. And you'd get one person being like, hey, I'm involved in this event. I'd like you to do it. And we'd just get this massive amount of people that were there for support. And it was, that's the community aspect of it. And that's what, we were able to garner, we were able to learn from each other because everyone cared so much about not only their own fitness, but then giving that to other people. The same thing what I thought at the level 1, where I saw these people that were amazing in their own right, but their biggest passion was giving what they had, the life-changing experience that they had through really hard workouts and functional movement, to other people and to others. And then we were able to kind of like, garner that and do it the same. And St. Thomas was amazing. Hardest decision that I made was leaving St. Thomas to come to Reebok. And it was really to further my coaching journey and my journey as an athlete as well. And when I was approached with the situation, because Reebok was up in Canton, Massachusetts, we ended up building a new gym and a new headquarters down in Seaport, where it is now. But at the time, I remember the opportunity presented itself. The first thing I did was I went to Chris and Jen. It's like, hey, here's the opportunity I have. And I remember their exact words were, we cannot afford to lose you as a coach, but we cannot afford for you not to take this opportunity. And they were, amazingly supportive. They're still some of my very best friends. I talk to Chris weekly, if not, a few times a week. And, Jen, they have three boys. And when I was living with them, I was like literally the fourth son that they never wanted. But it was a cool thing to have that support for me to be able to continue on. And throughout this journey, we talked about not having any kind of like traditional or official background in exercise science, physiology, any of that stuff. As I'm going through, Chris is like, hey, you're going to go take the CrossFit level 2 course. And, I'm coaching CrossFit for a few months. People are, losing weight. People are getting stronger. People are getting fitter. They're able to accomplish things they've never done. All of these good things are happening. And so it goes to me, oh, Conor, you're doing a great job as a coach. Just like the level 1, I go to the level 2 and I realize, oh man, there is so much more for me to learn. And they're just focusing on the basics. They're just focusing on, hey, know everything about these 9 foundational movements. And from there, there's going to be transferability to learn other things. But like, let's not major in the minors here. Like, you're a CrossFit coach and you're going to teach functional movement. But if you don't know absolutely every point of performance about the air squat, what business do you have with, trying to coach someone through a snatch? What business do you have doing this stuff? And so it was really just a focus back on the mechanics. And I remember after day 1, I was like, am I a good coach? Should I even be here? Because there's the amount of the knowledge gap between myself and the trainers was immense. And yet I'm still able to provide this product that's helping people. So it got to the point where I realized there is no end goal. You don't ever know it all. And you should get access to any and all information you can. So able to learn under both in person and through books and videos, people like Kelly Starrett with the book Supple Leopard, and then in person learning from him with like the mobility, the movement stuff, with different exercise physiologists, with doctors, with anyone that I could pick their brain to understand movement. The textbooks that I would have got in college and not paid attention to because I would have been too busy wanting to party or do whatever else people do in college. Like, I would have been a problem in college. If I would have gone after high school, like, it would have been an issue. But I'm reading these textbooks, these anatomy textbooks, because I want to learn more. I want to know what people are talking about when the smart people are saying things. I want to know what they're talking about before they dumb it down for me. As we always say in any good coach, right? You have to have the knowledge of an exercise physiologist, but the delivery of a kindergarten PE teacher, because the people we're teaching or coaching don't know. And to be honest with you, they don't really care either. If you can tell them a specific muscle that they need to activate or engage because of this stuff, they're like, okay, cool. But if you tell someone to just press their knees out and now they have more depth and their knees don't hurt during their squat, like, that's what they care about. Have that knowledge, but have the delivery of just making someone better faster, and getting all that knowledge and having the opportunity to be in front of these people and learn from, in my opinion, some of the best coaches in the world who have that ability to distill this large amount of information into small, palpable teaching progressions has been the only reason why I've had success in that. And constantly getting humbled for each level. It's like, oh, I'm a good coach, humbled. Oh, I'm getting good, humbled in each level. And then, with that kind of attitude that I'd learned from other people at Reebok, some of my mentors like Austin Malleolo and Denise Thomas, who are in the CrossFit world, led to my journey of actually getting to wear that red shirt, of getting on CrossFit seminar staff, teaching the CrossFit level 1 and level 2 seminars, and continuing to learn not just from my peers at that, but also from the participants that are coming in, because everyone has a different experience and everyone has different knowledge base and everyone have different ways to approach things. And that's why some people gravitate towards some people gravitate towards others. But people being their authentic selves, you can beg, borrow, and steal from them, and realize that, like, if you're just so stuck in your ways, it might work for some group of people. But if you're able to be open and humble and check your ego at the door, there's so much more to be learned, not just the knowledge of your craft, but about the delivery of your craft, how to be more personable to other people. So I credit everything that I know to every one of my mentors. Has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with my formal education. It has to do with having mentors that were so unbelievably gracious with their time to be able to teach me. And I steal their stuff. I'll give them credit twice afterwards, and then I just use it as my own. And it's been awesome from there.
So my first question is, did the federal agent know he was working out with a drug dealer in St. Thomas?
Oh yeah, I mean we're talking low level drug dealer on this one. These are like
Okay.
the small bags of weed. This guy just had a drug bust of like 700 kilos of cocaine on a mega yacht in there. Like, they know about them. They actually need those guys to get the information for the big guys. So, I mean,
Oh, okay.
St. Thomas is like high school. Like, everyone knows everything, and the rumors are terrible. Like, if you fart on Friday night, on Saturday morning, everyone heard that you shit your pants. Like, it's just like, it just gets worse. And it's an amazing place, and it's not for everyone, but everyone who's like, oh, it's too small of an island. To me, I'm like, what are you trying to hide? Like, what? Because I love that it's a small island. I love that when I go get my mail, or I go get my coffee, or I go, take a friend to a bar, that you have someone there who's greeting you, calling you by name, sending you the first round for free. Like, that's cool. Like, that's a great community. But I
Mm,
digress. Sorry.
yeah. So with the CrossFit background you have, and as we were kind of talking beforehand, is there's a lot people have to say about CrossFit. Um, oh, you're gonna get hurt. Oh, and there's been a vast majority of differences I've seen in different CrossFit affiliates and gyms or
Yeah.
boxes. Um, so the big thing though that's interesting to me is, like, in my gym, and we try to separate like the weightlifting, powerlifting from like our gen pop training, and 45 plus or so. But um, we have people that are scared to come in the gym sometimes because, like, oh, they're intimidated by a snatch, people doing snatches and heavy deadlifts or whatever. Uh, but CrossFit has been something that's been out there that more and more older people are seeing as like, oh, hey, this can help me get rid of my diabetes, my osteoporosis, um, get me my life back and just keep up with my kids or whatever. So I think there's something, and they say CrossFit is a cult, all the time. You guys have that rap, which to some people might be a bad thing, but myself as a gym owner, um, there's definitely something about that I want to have in my gym. So what is it about CrossFit that just does something so different from everyone else with the environment, the community, how they get people to drastically change their habits and everything else, unlike no other fitness facility or affiliation or franchise that I've ever really seen before that's, been going on now for how long's CrossFit been around? Almost 20 years now?
Yeah, I mean, longer than that, from when Coach Glassman has been teaching the methodology that, he had from a science and physics base. I mean, he's a mathematician. He's a math guy. And if you have a conversation with him, you're like, it takes you about 4 seconds before you're like, okay, this person's smart. This person is smarter than me. This person is smarter than most people. He's incredibly smart about the program. But the first CrossFit workout came online in 2001.
Okay.
So I guess 22 years has there been online programming from CrossFit.com.
Hmm. Uh, so yeah, what is it about all the environment and everything that's like just so different that gets people to change their lives like that?
So I'll kind of answer this in two parts. And in the first part, um, especially at the CrossFit Level 1 seminar, there's the main thing, or a big thing that we're doing there, is teaching our program. And what we do when teaching our program is actually dispel a lot of myths that are about CrossFit, and any like preconceived notions of what you know or what you don't know about what CrossFit is. Because at its core, no one's going to argue about CrossFit. No one is going to argue about what the program is. We talk about functionality and movements. People need to be able to pick something up off the floor. They need to be able to sit down into a chair and stand up freely, and they should be able to press something up and overhead. I don't think anyone's like, no, there's some people that don't need to do that, right? Everyone needs to do that stuff. And in the level 1, we have the 9 foundational movements, and what you focus on in that are the mechanics of the movement. You know, what is going to make this, what makes it functional, like the functionality of the movement, orthopedic safety, and then muscular and mechanical advantage. Those are the points of performance that we stress that have all 3 of those things in mind. And it's like, if you teach someone how to squat well, no one's going to get mad at that. It is the intensity part that maybe is in some cases dosed inappropriately, and some of the movements and some of the crazy people, right? Like I've been there. I've posted stuff online that's dumb, but it's fun. You know, you get to do that stuff. And then some people are like, oh, you know, this is dangerous. This is stupid stuff to do. And you're like, yes, some of it is, but that's not like the core of CrossFit as constantly varied functional movement at high intensity. People see high intensity and they're like, whoa, like 66-year-old grandma doesn't need to be high intensity. But what is high intensity? It is relative high intensity. Relative to what? Well, your physiological and psychological tolerances. What are you able to do? My mother and my dad have been doing CrossFit now for 12 years. You know, they were in the bodybuilding world, and then it kind of came back to like, we need more functionality to live. My dad doesn't need to be the most jacked human being anymore. However, he does need to sit down on the toilet, stand up, and I'd like for him to be able to run 400 meters around a track. Like, that'd be, you know, pretty good quality of life. And so our intensities look different. My dad and I do the same workout almost every day, but the intensity is different. And we have an actual definition of intensity in CrossFit, which is a physics formula of work over time, of force times distance over time. And to simplify it, it's like, you know, how much does it weigh? How far did it move? How fast did it take you? And in layman's terms, if you and I are going to do, you know, 1 minute of air squats, we got to set the range of motion standards. All right, what does the standard have to be so we can keep it consistent? And then, you know, how much do you weigh? How much do I weigh? Whatever like that different stuff is. But if you perform 60 air squats in a minute and I perform 30, we can do the power equation, and you can find that you will have a higher, you know, foot-pound per minute power output than I had during that, because you did more reps than me. But we don't have to go that far just to know that, hey, in 1 minute and 60 seconds of air squats, you are objectively fitter than I am because you performed 60, I performed 30. However, we may both be working at our physiological tolerances at the peak of our relative intensity. My dad does the workout with likely significantly less weight, trying to fight for the same range of motion standards because we don't want to give up range of motion. Right? At no point in time do you want to be like, well, I used to press here, but now I can press the same weight just to here. You're like, no. We need this. I need the anatomical and natural end ranges from all of your joints. And we want to hold on to that because that's going to be a key ingredient for quality of life. So that's what CrossFit's program is. And when you look at the CrossFit games, you know, people are like, I saw that person do it. He did, you know, 100 swingy, kippy, chinny over the bar-y things. And you're like, yeah, you know, relative to power output, he's, you know, he or she's very, very capable of that. But when people come in the gym, like, well, I can't do a strict pull-up, but the kipping pull-ups are for me. And you're like, is that CrossFit's prescription? No, it's not. And you don't only do kipping pull-ups in CrossFit. We have strict pull-ups. We have L-sit pull-ups. We have all these different things. However, when you utilize the hip, you are able to generate more power, therefore do more work over less time. In metabolic conditioning workouts, when you default to a kipping pull-up, you can do more work over less time. That's not to say, it doesn't discredit anything else about a pull-up, about going from a straight arm position to a chin over the bar. My dad is never going to do a kipping pull-up. He's like, he's what I call a muscle grinding cash badger, or what some people refer to as a brick shit house, right? He's been benching and doing curls his whole life. So his shoulders are really, really tight. However, my dad can do 15 strict pull-ups. He's 64 years old.
Wow.
I'm not worried about him falling down and not be able, I don't need to give him life alert. He's
Yeah.
created over the last 10 years this enormous capacity by doing functional movements at relative intensity where, he can't overhead squat as much as he used to when he was 2 years into CrossFit. You could probably overhead squat 165 pounds. Now, he's probably not going to go above 95 pounds in an overhead squat. But guess what? I'm not worried about him getting stuck on the couch. I'm not worried about his quality of life at 64 years old. He can do, anything that we're doing. We went down to Costa Rica a few months ago. A couple of my old military buddies, some of my, CrossFit friends, everyone, we all go down there, and my parents are involved. They're doing everything that we're doing in their 60s. We're doing pull-up workouts on the beach. We're just broing out down there. That's quality of living. That's what CrossFit stresses at its core. CrossFit Games, some of the other stuff, some of the application that people put on it, maybe the ignorant coaches like myself when I first started, where I was like, intensity. It's like, can you pick up 225? You can? Go, we're doing it 45 times. And people are like, ooh, maybe the mechanics aren't so good here. Maybe you're not following the charter that CrossFit puts out as mechanics, consistency, and then intensity. However, people aren't made of porcelain. So you have the dipshit idiot coaches, which I started off as and sometimes still consider myself as, having people do these movements that are inherently safe, even if in poor positions, right? I've yet to see a gym anywhere where every single person moves in a perfect fashion in every movement. It just doesn't happen. And nor have I see it in regular life. It's like when I'm like, all right, at the end of this podcast, I'm not like, okay, to move through, like our bodies, we can do some other things. And unfortunately, the prescription of the program is so effective that people can administer it poorly and still see results. And that's where CrossFit gets a bad rap. Now, sorry, I'll step off my CrossFit soapbox there.
No, it's good.
Well, and I think when we go down that route, you're like, well, then why are there 14,000 CrossFit affiliates in the world? Why are there more CrossFit gyms than any other gym or discipline in the world? One, because I think that Coach Glassman loves the free market. So it doesn't have to be a franchise. You don't need investors in millions of dollars such that you would need for a 24-hour fitness or a lifetime fitness or whatever those are. You can do the CrossFit level 1. You can apply for an affiliate license. You can open up your own gym in your garage and you can start teaching 5 to 10 people. You own a gym. You're now a gym owner. And then things organically expand from there. Where I think the community comes from is that naturally, when you do constantly varied functional movements at high intensity, the efforts are difficult. If I were to tell someone to do, any basic CrossFit workout, it's going to get you out of breath. And it's scalable for my grandma to get out of breath and for Matt Frazier and Rich Froning and all of my other, buddies who are still competing and incredibly fit in CrossFit. And so when you have those hard workouts, there's shared suffering. That's one piece of it. 2, very rarely does someone open a successful CrossFit affiliate, and I measure it as successful in clients getting results, doors staying open. A successful affiliate that hasn't had a life-changing experience from CrossFit that wants to give that to other people. It is the care component. Coach Glassman was asked years and years ago, what are the 3 most important things to running an affiliate? And he said, care, care, and care. If you give a shit about your members, you're gonna one, radiate that. They're gonna know that it's genuine care. 2, you're not gonna sit in a sedentary way of, I know everything, I'm just gonna coach what I know now. You're gonna seek to do courses. There are courses, and we encourage at the CrossFit level 1 and level 2 to do more courses inside and outside of CrossFit in every level of discipline all over the fitness industry. I've done strongman courses, powerlifting courses. I've done week-long Olympic lifting courses. I've taken gymnastics courses, all outside of CrossFit, because I want to gain the knowledge of all of that stuff and learn how I can apply it to my members to get them moving better, creating higher power output, and safer positions. It's and when you care, if you don't care, you're not going to seek and do that stuff. You're not going to remember people's names. And that's a big thing too. And this is going to be kind of a sidetrack thing, but I hold true on this. I've met a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm just not very good with names," and you're like, "Okay, there are probably some people who are naturally better at remembering people's names, and some people who aren't." However, if I were to tell you, "Hey, Brett, I'm going to give you $2 million at the end of today if you remember everyone's name that you meet," guess what you're going to remember? Every
Names.
person's name. And you're going to do everything in your head. Like, okay, so my podcast guy over here, his name is Peter Peter Pan podcast, Peter. And like, you're going to force yourself to do these things. And so when you care and when you're like, I'm going to remember everyone's name, I'm going to know all this stuff. I'm going to know what their kids do. I'm going to know what they're, I'm going to know, I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask Sean when he comes into class on Monday how his son's lacrosse game went. Cause I remember him talking about that on Friday. That's been pushed down from the top the entire time. The CrossFit level 1, the CrossFit level 2, you'd think all these people want to do is talk about their own accomplishments because they have been robust. All they want to do is ask one more question about you. And the care in that, you can't fake that. You can learn it for sure, but you can't fake care. And when you're doing hard workouts, it's very rare that people are cutting corners. Everyone knows the person who, shaves a couple reps here or there and does that. And it's like everyone in the gym knows it. But for the most part, and we've talked about this on the podcast before too, there's a reason why, and I'd probably imagine it's the same with your gym, with the same care that you bring in, stuff doesn't go missing. Someone leaves their cell phone or their wallet there. If they leave it there for 20 minutes, I'm not worried. I've left my wallet at the gym for a week because the people that are going there aren't looking for the shortcut because they're putting in very, very hard work. And I think that's why a lot of people avoid CrossFit too, especially from other disciplines, is because they're incredible at their disciplines. They're really, really good. Olympic lifters, power lifters, people in track. Because if you were to go to the track meet and you're like, all right, let's see who's the baddest person here. You see the people running the 100. And these are the fastest people in the world, depending on the track meet. Right? In the Olympics, these are the fastest people in the world. But if you tell Usain Bolt you're going to run a marathon the next day, he is going to be woefully inadequate and he's going to look like he's never ran before in his life. That's what CrossFit does, but not just in one discipline of running, in everything. And the workouts are difficult. And, speaking of, so when I reference like the federal agent that was in the class, this is a real person. This is a real person. And for the conversation's sake, his name is Brian. We won't say his last name. Brian is one of my best friends. Brian came in to do CrossFit with another guy. It was the intro workout where he had finished his on-ramp and he got to go in the class. It was like running and power cleans. I had a super lightweight on the bar and he's like, oh, I could go heavier than this because there was another guy in the class. His name is Dave Haddo. At the time, Dave Haddo was 64 years old. And Dave is just a maniac. I mean, Dave just jacked, little guy. He had 95 pounds on the bar. I had Brian, who's just a unit of a person, had 75 pounds on the bar. And I'm like, hey, each rep, we're just going to do singles on this. I know you see people stringing it together, but right now we're just going to work on like the concentric part of this, just like the contraction to get it to your shoulder. We can drop it now from there. That's why we have rubber plates, and he's like, all right, whatever. And Dave dusts him on this workout. It's a 4-round workout. At 3 rounds, Brian's like sitting down against the wall and he's like, oh man. I'm like, Brian's not going to come back because Brian just got dusted by a 64-year-old and Brian's never been beat at anything in his whole life. Next day, Brian, who doesn't have an ego, shows back up. I could show you pictures of Brian at the time where you're like, oh, that looks like a badass dude. And now you're like, that guy's cut up like a julienne salad. Like he looks like Michelangelo came down himself and carved him out of marble. But he had the ability to drop his ego and come in and be bad at something to get good. And unfortunately, when some people have an ego and they're so unbelievably good at their specific discipline, I'm not knocking on any specialist at all, nor would I ever. But as far as general fitness, there's more capacity to be gained. And if you can deadlift 1,000 pounds, right? If you're Eddie Hall, and well, Eddie's like an anomaly because he's actually done some CrossFit workouts. He's transferred over into that area. I mean, not like, CrossFit workouts that are good for him. He does like the 30 clean and jerks for time. And I remember seeing Kendrick Ferris, Olympic lifter, do the workout Isabel for the first time, which is 30 snatches at 135 pounds. This guy can snatch like near 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And you say, like, almost for the first bit, like, he doesn't know, the bar is so light, he doesn't know what to do. And he finishes at like a good time for a decent CrossFit athlete, not an elite time for elite CrossFit athletes. And like, this is his modality, yet it's outside of that 1, 2, 3 rep range. And he was supposed to do an interview afterwards. This is at the CrossFit Games. He's like, he went into his trailer afterwards, was exhausted. But it's cool to see someone that's like, hey, I'm really good in this specialty, but I'm going to try to do what CrossFit is pushing, which is this general physical preparedness for their definition of fitness, which is not just specialty. It's not, specializing in one thing. It's essentially being a generalist in everything. And so I think like that, like removing the ego from it. It's so hard to have an ego in a CrossFit gym because you can be top of the world one day and last place the next day. So with the care component from the coaches and then people having to drop their egos, it's so much. It's like stripping the armor off of everyone and then having them come together and be like, hey, it's okay to suck. It's okay to be bad at new things, and that's the variance piece of it too. And that's why I think that community is so incredible by a few of those reasons.
So, kind of see the same thing, especially with Olympic lifting. Like, I love the sport. I'm a nerd. I'm someone that loves to be humbled by different things and learn different things. And um, I got into it because at the time I was dating a girl that was in strength and conditioning, and she worked in a gym. They did that stuff all day, and we'd go work out together. And it would be like she'd be crushing cleans and snatches, and I'm like, I can barely do this stuff. I was like, I need to get better at this. Like, I need to be better than her at this. Um, and then I got addicted to it and went to the gym every day and fucking learned until, well, now I own two Olympic weightlifting gyms, and I'm traveling the world coaching it now. So that's been a pretty cool journey of mine myself. But uh,
That's amazing.
yeah, you see a lot of people, and powerlifting's cool because what I love about powerlifting, much like CrossFit, is anyone can come in and do that, or almost anyone can come in and do that. And it's like, just put your head down, and if you keep knocking your head against the wall, eventually you're going to break through it, and you'll see progress, right? Olympic lifting, a little more technical, more demands of the body physically. Um, but we see a lot of people that could be very good weightlifters, especially, that just it doesn't click for them right up front, and like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I was like, come, just keep trying. Like, you're getting better. You're making progress.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, there's a girl in here snatching more than you right now, even though you can deadlift 4 times as much as her. But like, you can get there. So do you see that in CrossFit too? Like, a lot of people come and go really fast, and it's just, do you think part of what's made CrossFit so successful is it just kind of checks checks the people out that have the ego, and the ones that stay are the ones that don't, that love to be humbled?
I think so. And I think that CrossFit has a unique way of doing it almost before someone walks in the gym. I think that because there's not a lot of promotion for CrossFit and like each individual affiliate is ran on its own. People will promote themselves, but the best promotion, in my opinion, the best promotion that you can do is take care of your members so fucking much that all they can do is talk about how amazing their gym is. Because it's the friends that are going to be like, you have to come try it out. And when you're humble enough, then you'll do it because you know what CrossFit is. You're like, well, what's the workout going to be? And they're like, well, we don't know. That's the best part. And you're like, well, I don't want to go into something where I don't know what it's going to be. When I'm convincing people to tell them like, hey, come join me and train. And that's the only way I can explain CrossFit to someone. Unless I have 45 minutes and a whiteboard, I cannot explain what CrossFit or what fitness is. Outside of that, I can. But I'm like, hey, just come join me on Friday. You and I will work out. Well, what's the workout? Well, I haven't programmed it yet. Well, what if I can't do it? Like, it's universally scalable. You can do a version of it, but just know that there may be, and it's of course funny with like the sex side of things, where it's like you may go in there and you're going to see a woman doing things that you're not capable of and using a heavier weight that you probably could do. However, your mechanics and consistency aren't there yet, so we want to get you to that point. And so it is that there's like this pre-humbling effect before getting someone in there. And I think the efficacy of CrossFit is important for the general population and why it's so cult-like, because of the overall health benefits that happen from it. And it's very similar to a lot of different, um, fitness disciplines. However, in CrossFit, if we're referencing just for powerlifters, I mean, to get really good at powerlifting, it almost takes a sacrifice of, not almost, but it's going to take a sacrifice of other physiological adaptations. If you have a ton of cardiorespiratory endurance, you're going to need to lose some of that in order to gain a little bit more of your strength here. There's, this, it's like the Madden stats, right? You have
Yeah,
like these 10, you have cardiorespiratory endurance, strength, stamina, flexibility, power, speed, accuracy, agility, balance, and coordination. It's like those are our 10 physiological adaptations that you can get from performing fitness. CrossFit's goal is to elevate all of them. However, if your goal is to run a sub 2-hour marathon, the strength part is going to be at a minimum. And the cardiorespiratory endurance is going to be high, but really just specific to running. Just because you can row a 2-hour marathon doesn't mean you're going to be good at rowing. Doesn't mean you have the muscular stamina to be good at rowing, or you have like these other, skills. And we always stress this, that is not a knock towards specialists at all. You can put, Eliud Kipchoge or Dennis Kometo, some of the fastest marathon runners in the world, next to me running. I'm going to run 400 meters as fast as I can, and they will be able to keep up with me. However, they can do that 100 more times afterwards around a track to run a world record marathon. The distance between the moon and Earth makes more sense to me than someone running a 2-hour marathon. It is unbelievable. However, you have to beg, borrow, and steal from other disciplines. So you may not be capable of, doing a muscle up out of a pool, or you may not be capable of, carrying 3 kids and, kicking up your groceries at one hand as you bring everyone into the house. And from the powerlifting side of it, we talk about, some of the strongest guys in the world. It's like, that is unbelievable. I fancy myself as relatively strong. You would have to like triple my 1 rep max deadlift to get to the heaviest. Like, it's just unfathomable how strong people are. However, if you were going to have them run a 5K, you'd have to measure it with a sundial, right? It's like, and it's not to say, hey, you're an idiot. It's saying that you are so unbelievably disciplined and incredible at your discipline that this is what's become of it. However, for what most people want isn't that special. What most people need isn't that specialization. If you haven't worked out, you feel like shit, you're 30% body fat or over, you have all of your health markers are in the wrong direction. Running, rowing, lifting, gymnastics, all of that stuff are going to move your health markers from that sickness towards fitness faster than specifically do it in one discipline or in one modality. And I think that's why when people start to see those results from the GPP, that's why people want to stick with CrossFit.
Absolutely. And I've heard this saying before from a few different coaches, but it's like, if you want to stay healthy, don't compete, especially at weightlifting, powerlifting, one of these
Don't compete at CrossFit
specific.
either. Don't think that's specific to that.
Yeah.
I was broken. Yeah. After like the 2017 CrossFit Games, now granted, I was capable of a lot, but it was like every day, it was like my joints. It was like I was like, to like try to be the fittest. Now, my quality of life is way better. I do 1 workout a day. Sometimes they're 4 minutes long, sometimes they're 20, whatever it is. And then I leave the gym and I go live the rest of my life. But competing in anything, sorry to interrupt on that one, but don't take CrossFit out of that, because even though they look, and can perform anything, there's a reason why they take 2 months off after a competitive season, because it's just like mentally, physically, it's just draining.
Yeah, for sure. So, what did training for the CrossFit Games look like for you? Like, were you just doing that full time? Were you dedicated to anything else? How many hours a day were you working out? Because, um, yeah, being on the what we see on ESPN from those guys and everything is, uh, it's amazing, and there's just so much that has to go into that. But also, yeah, like how horrible do these guys feel and girls on a day-to-day basis that we don't see or feel?
Yeah, and I think that answer has changed as time has gone on. In 2012, you could get to the CrossFit Games and still not really dial in your diet. You could still be a school teacher and then train afterwards for a couple hours a day and get there. Now, it's got to be your full time job. I don't know. And if it's not your full time job, then you're coaching CrossFit at a gym, or you're managing a gym, or you're running a gym, or you're doing something that revolves around fitness. And some people can dabble in other things, but a good friend of mine, Pat Vellner, went through school to be a physical therapist and, sorry, as a chiropractor. And after being at his practice and still trying to compete, he had to step away from his practice because he's like, he doesn't have enough, because it's not just the training piece of it. It's not just the metabolic conditioning, the strength, it's taking care of yourself. It is the amount of sleep time, the sleep quality. Every top level athlete knows exactly how many macronutrients of protein, carbohydrate, and fat that are going in their body every single day. The mobility and positioning work, the skill work, the amount of stuff that goes into it. It's like how do you be good at everything? Well, you have to do everything all the time. And you have to manage it in a way that I still think people are trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. And, even guys like Matt Frazier, he's going to school with what was he? It's like some sort of engineering. It's like aerospace engineering degree. And after he got that degree, he was like, okay, I want to win the CrossFit Games. Didn't utilize it. He just trained. He just trained and focused on every aspect that he could to be the very best at that. And some people probably different than others, depending on pre-existing injuries, what they've done before in their life. But not to say their bodies are broken, but they are completely exhausted and drained from being at that competitive level and putting your body through that to be at an absolute peak. And at a low level competition, sure, you train once a day and then you do a local competition. It's super fun. You do well. You're proud of your efforts. But when it becomes your lifestyle, that's when the change happens. It's
Yeah,
all day. It is every bit of your day is CrossFit Games. Every thought
yeah,
you have.
yeah. It has to be because even for me, like having been competitive, somewhat competitive in weightlifting, um, you know, looking back now, and I took some time off. We opened two gyms at once and had a lot going on in my personal life too. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep training, but like I'm not being at that competitive level. Knowing you're training for something competitively that's coming up is it's a whole different mental game you have to be on. It's a whole different buy-in you have to have. It's more time, more discipline outside the gym. And then like even for me now, I'm like, okay, how do I recover better? It's like, okay, well I have to like still just to be good at one thing, train about 2 hours a day, maybe 4 times a week. I should be throwing some cardio in there for health once twice a week. I should be doing some. I actually have a rheumatoid disorder, so I should be doing some daily stretching, maybe some breathing stuff to bring me down. I'm like, this is like 4 or 5 hours of my day, and I run two gyms. Like, it's not going to happen. It's just there's no way for me to come back at least at this point and be competitive. I think at that level, and that's just in one thing. Never mind all these other aspects of fitness that these guys are focusing on. So it's just interesting to hear. So, um, with that being said, I want to pick your brain a little bit um, on that generalistic approach and some things maybe we do or don't disagree on. So, um, CrossFit gets a bad rap a lot from the hardcore weightlifters because the snatch, and clean and jerk are technical movements that they say shouldn't be done more than maybe 5 reps based on science. So, um, and then to me at least, it seems like there's been a vastly different experience people have at different gyms and everything else with different programming. And it's like, what does that look like? Or what is the mindset of CrossFit to program something like a snatch for 20 reps or something like that? Because just what I wonder is, do we have to do that? Is there a better way we can get the same training stimulus and adaptation by doing something maybe less invasive or less risky on someone?
Yeah, and I think that that's probably something that I will even like take credit for, that is done and administered poorly enough to for that opinion to be 100% valid. Right? If you see someone in the gym who really has no business snatch, for instance, we can talk about the workout Isabel, which is the workout I mentioned earlier, which is 30 snatches for time, but it is a either muscle power or it can be a full snatch. It is just get a bar from the ground to overhead. And yeah, I mean, there's some people that don't have the understanding or mechanics or technique or flexibility to safely hold a bar overhead with their arms locked out and not be an extension of their spine. Should those people still be doing the workout? In my opinion, yes. However, you can dumb down a snatch as simple as taking a PVC from mid shin, standing, and putting it over your head. Now, some people like, in the Olympic lifting world are just like, oh my gosh, that coach just taught the snatch to a brand new person in 5 minutes. And it's like, yeah, right. But it is an infinitely, in my opinion, and probably yours as well, clean and jerk and snatch are infinitely refinable skills. You're never like, my technique is perfect, my strength is perfect, I win Olympic lifting. Like there's so many just minor details that you can do and improve upon to get better. And I kind of look that way at a lot of different things. However, for most people, most of the time in most circumstances, you can safely bring a PVC pipe from your mid shin to overhead, and you can learn a couple of things about the snatch. Hey, mom, today on the snatch, what you're going to do is you're going to keep that PVC pipe as close to your body as possible. We're going to just focus on bar path right now. Cool. She's bending her arms early. She's turning it around. It's like, it's her lockout is okay. But hey, we're just focusing on that. Is my mom in a relatively safe position? Yeah, she's lifting a PVC pipe from ground to overhead. Life's going to demand that of her, right? Of bending down to grab something. Is she learning how to perfect the snatch? No, but she's improving. Now, the next time I'm like, all right, mom, on this one, I know last time we worked on keeping the bar close. On these sets of snatches, all you're going to focus on is when you stand all the way up before you pull overhead, your arms have to be straight. That's it. So you're going to stand and then pull. Keep your arms long. And once you can squeeze your butt, then you push and pull overhead. Okay, cool. Thanks, Connor. All right. Maybe we have a training or practice bar. Granted, she's able to move in safe positions. That's the progression that should happen when teaching someone a movement. However, if you have someone who has a capacity to, overhead, so they have good positioning, they have a capacity to overhead squat a lot of weight, they're in them in good positions, then maybe you're giving that person more technical coaching. So if I have a class full of 10 people and I have my mom who's over here with the PVC pipe, as we're building up for our workout, as we're going over the mechanics, I'm having everyone warm up with their PVC pipe. I'm spending a little bit more time with my beginner athletes. Keep it close, do all this stuff. Athletes who've done it before, right? They're warming up. They're going through the burner warm up. They're going through all the positioning. Fantastic. Then as weight starts to get heavier, kind of moving in the middle ground, helping coach people. I saw my beginners with super lightweight over there, just, doing, I'm like, hey, it's not like put your hands at your snatch position. There's not, people that bring their hands in real narrow or start off at a sumo stance. And you're like, what are you doing over here? But then as it starts to get heavier, I'm working more towards the athletes who are working closer to their physiological limits, who are working closer to where those margins of error are a lot smaller and the risk of injury is a little bit higher. Now for those people, maybe we're working on actually the dip under. After they clear the knees, what's actually happening about getting their torso vertical so that when they're extending the bar is not coming around, and whatever the focus point is for that person, for that group in class. In that scenario, you can be like, well, yeah, everyone can learn the snatch. And then now we're going to do 30 for time. So here's where threshold training comes in. If, for instance, like we talked about with Kendrick Ferris, probably the worst snatches he's ever done in his life were reps 20 of 30 through Isabel because he's exhausted, right? His body is not used to the adaptation. We say the breadth of the adaptation correlates to the breadth of the stimulus. If he's not training in that way, he's not going to be prepared for that. But if you are preparing for that and you're at a weight, for instance, Chandler Ferris didn't get injured after doing that workout. He was just exhausted because relative to his 1 rep max, that's a super, super lightweight. He could round his back on the pole, bend his arms early, reverse curl the bar around and press it out. He's going to still be in a relatively safe position. Now, I'm not going to have my mom do that at 135. No, heck no. But at that, there's that learning curve of where is this going to break down? Reps 1 through 5, I want to look picture perfect. At some point through 30, there should be some minor mechanical errors as you get exhausted. Now, my job as a coach is to be able to slow down my athlete if I have to, or correct them in the positioning. Arms bent a little bit early. Keep your arms straight, then jump and pull. Great. A little bit soft. Punch harder after you jump. I want you to catch with that locked out. Whatever the simple coaching cue is in order to improve that. And then that's where they're going to garner that adaptation, because intensity, we talked, so if it's 30 for time, the faster you do it, the higher the intensity, the higher the power output, the faster you're going to get results. Now you have to have the mechanics, you have to have the consistency in order for me to turn the knob up on that intensity. You have to have the capability. You have to be able to you have to be able to be capable of being in a shitty position with that weight, even if I don't want you to be there. That's the weight where we're like, yeah, 30 snatches for time has been a benchmark workout. And I've yet to see anyone have any sort of, maybe at least in the affiliates where smart people have helped me out, any kind of injury that's coming from that because of the load that's on the bar. I mean, it's kind of the same as if you're doing 90 to 95% work and you have to hit, doubles, and you hit one, and then on the 15-second mark, you hit another one. That second one is going to feel a whole lot heavier because of, you can talk about from a bioenergetic standpoint of your phosphagen pathway not being fully recovered before you hit a low. It's like, there's all of that stuff, or it's just like, you're more tired. And so you're going to maybe rely on technique more, which is why we're hitting those doubles. So then when we're fresh, then you're able to have that capacity. So it's all kind of in the same, it's just the application of it can be applied very poorly, which I've seen done at affiliates. I've seen done by, in my opinion, pretty dang good coaches that have just overseen or overstepped, or perhaps had 20 people in a class and weren't able to check in or do their job accordingly because they didn't plan properly for what it was going to look like if they had 20 people in the class. When you have one person who, has just had ACL surgery, and you have another person who has X, Y, Z, and it's like, if you don't prepare for that, yeah, you're gonna show up with your tail tucked. But I think that, go ahead.
No, that's kind of what I was getting to. Is like, yes, we have all these things, and maybe that's what you understand as a coach now with your time and experience in it. But part of what I love about this podcast is trying to help people advocate for themselves and find the right things to best optimally help them in their health and fitness. So, what should someone look for when they're going into a CrossFit gym as far as the coaching is concerned? And are coaches actually retaining this information when they come out of courses? Because we could all learn from the best, but when we're young and we're naive and we don't know what we don't know yet, there's definitely things I do differently than I did 5 years ago, or even last year, or a couple months ago. I'm still learning things as we fail. So, just for people out there to know, how does that work in CrossFit? It's probably not perfectly refined yet, as CrossFit is still growing and new coaches are coming in and out, but I guess as a coach, what are things people should know, and as people looking to do CrossFit, what should they be on the lookout for?
That's such a good question, and it's one that I don't know if I have an exact answer to. I can tell you what I would look for, and the first thing is that when I'm looking at the gym, right? Every gym has to have a website. Some of them just have like a Facebook site, but every gym, in order to be an affiliate, has to have a website. And a lot of times the coaches are listed on there. I would look for not the coach that has the most amount of credentials, right? Credentials can be great, but just like you said, how much information that is actually being retained. And honestly, when you see someone with like 30, you're like, how much did they really take out of each one of these courses? What I look for CrossFit specifically is I would look for someone who has the actual certification in CrossFit. So the CrossFit level 3, be a certified CrossFit trainer. The reason why is that they've had to take the level 1, which is the introductory course. They've had to take the level 2, which is not an introductory course. It is actually, you are getting feedback. There's a next level of methodology, but then you're getting feedback on your ability to coach your peers. And that's why it's such a difficult course, is you're in there, and on day 2, you are expected to take your group of people and teach them one of the 9 foundational movements and teach it as well as you can. And what our job as a staff member to do is to actually coach you on your teaching, not necessarily fix people's movement, which is more the level 1 course, but to teach at that. And then after a certain amount of coaching hours, then you have to take the actual certification, which is, I believe, 160 questions. It's a 4-hour test. One of the most robust fitness tests that I've taken. I've done the ACSM, the NSCA, the American Council of Exercise. I've done a lot of those when I was really getting into fitness and working out. This one was really, really robust, specific to CrossFit. So I would look for that first, because you can't accidentally get the level 3. I mean, you've really got to care, and you really got to want to get it. You don't have to, but you really have to want to separate yourself. So that's the first thing I would look for, because it shows a few different things. 1, the education level, but 2, the care part of being humble enough to go through the other things. And not just that, but as you kind of, you wrote this down on the sheet we were talking about, but is technical knowledge more important, or is like the personality part more important? And it's such a hard thing to answer, because of course you're like, well, both are. But I can tell you, and this is now with my new role, we highlight a lot of trainers in the Boston area and trainers in every discipline of fitness. And the people who have the most amount of people showing up for their classes and that are obsessed and that are doing everything, and not to reference anything about technical knowledge, are the people that these people want to be around. It's the bubbly personality. It's the care. It's the hanging out afterwards. It is the, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming. It means so much to me. It is the genuine and authentic conversations and interactions that they are having. That's where they're seeing the success. However, if you can have that and then continue to build that technical knowledge, that's when you're going to optimize yourself as a coach. But I would say being this side of it as personality, someone you want to be around, is more important. And it's like hurts so much to say, because you're like, I don't want to say this isn't important, but that's more important, because you could be the most technical, knowledgeable, unbelievable, just genius mind. But if you're boring and no one wants to be around you, or you're like a person, you're not going to have any clients. You're not going to be able to help anyone, because no one wants to be around you. And if you're going to be giving life-changing results to someone, you better figure out how to get people in the doors of your gym, or how to get them to stay there. But that, relating back to the part of your question, is I would look for that CrossFit level 3, and then I would go try out a gym. And don't be like, hey, there's a CrossFit gym near me. This is my gym. Go in there, see how they treat you. Look at how clean their bathrooms are. Look at how much they care about their facility. Look how well other people are moving. Go in there and watch someone coach a class. And if you see someone who's moving around and talking to everyone and just trying their best, I'd go to that gym. Because if they're not perfect, they're at least humble enough to not either overload you, or they're going to learn, how to appropriately dose that. But it's the person who's like, oh yeah, this is the gym, who's drinking their coffee during the workout brief, or on their phone, or doing that. Avoid that gym like a plague, because that person doesn't give a shit.
Pretty simple. I think for people too, it's like there's differences in CrossFit gyms. It's just because you went to one probably and might have had a bad experience. It's just like going out to eat. Like I'm not doing that because people don't want to go to physical therapy because they've had a bad experience. And we're like, well, did you go out to eat before and have a bad experience? Yeah. Well, did you go to another restaurant and have a good one? Yeah. Okay. Like maybe it's not physical therapy. It's the physical therapy place you went to and had a bad experience. So I just want to remind people of that
Your
as
simile
well.
was much better than mine about the restaurants than mine with churches and stuff, because I feel like people, if they hear religion, they're like, I'm going to steal that from you. And I'd be like, is
Yeah.
eating out bad? No, it's pretty good. Can you go somewhere and not enjoy it? Yeah. Can you go somewhere and not enjoy it that other people enjoy? Yeah, you can. You just have to, figure out what you like. I like that one. I'll give you credit twice when I repeat it to other people, and then after that, I'm stealing it as my own.
All right, cool. um, what else did I have here? I guess, yeah, I guess going back to what I was listening to one of your other podcasts before, and something that really rings true about just like giving a shit and caring and having the personality for those people out there that want to be good coaches. Like, so I've had 3 coaches come in my doors that had their masters in exercise physiology, kinesiology, sports performance, what have you. They're all CSCS certified. They've all got this collegiate background. And coming into the private sector, there's a difference of what you need for that personality because we're Gen Pop. We're trying to have fun with people. We also have competitive athletes and things too. But like when I'm in my office and I'm maybe working on a patient or on my computer and I just hear crickets out on the training floor, I am a very concerned business owner that knowing is having fun. Um, and I'll give my girl Julia here a lot of credit. We brought Julia in 8 months ago, and like she knew nothing, but she wanted to learn. She's a student. You could tell she just had a knack for people skills and caring, and like she's the best thing that came into our gym because members love her. Like I mean, he left the bat like. And she knew she didn't know a lot, but she's put a lot of work and effort into learning more, and she takes initiative on things and has dove into a lot of continuing ed for herself, and it's paid her a lot of dividends. So something I think people need to realize is, yeah, going to the coach that just has the most accolades on their thing doesn't always mean as much as the experience and the following someone has, and the rapport those people can build with you.
Hell yeah, Julia.
Yeah, yeah, because
Um,
that's what keeps people coming back and having a good time too.
for sure. I mean, you can go. Speak about like even like the same restaurant experience.
Yeah,
You can go to a place that has the nicest plates, the nicest decor, the best food in ever, and your server can ruin that experience for you. But you can get someone who knows nothing about any of the food. They could be going there reading the specials off of a list. They could be going, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find the answer to that, and going back, but just genuinely caring about you. And you're going to be like, that person's amazing because they were humble in their approach. And at some point in time, they're going to learn. You can teach, you can learn all the other stuff. It's
that's
very difficult to teach the other side.
that's a huge thing too. Is we see this a lot with like newer coaches that want to know everything and are afraid to make mistakes, and they'll just start spewing things out and making things up. Where like for everyone looking for a gym and a good coach, if you ask someone a hard question and they don't know, they should tell you, "Hey, I don't know. I still do this. You know, I've got a 7-year doctorate. I've done residencies, everything else." And like, there's plenty of times I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. I'm gonna have to like go look this up. Let me shoot you an email after. You know, I'll follow up with you, what have you, and like, and I think people have a lot more respect for that when you could just be humble enough to say you don't know, and you're gonna go find out for them and show that you care. That goes a long way in the coaching world for
Yeah,
people.
that's a great point.
Yeah, well, you made it. I just highlighted it.
You always make it sound better. I feel like I like come up with these ideas and then you like really refine it. You put the bow on it and then I'm just going to take that product afterwards. So
We'll have to do more of these. I'll give you some
yeah,
more.
good duo back and forth.
Yeah, I'll have to come on your show at some point. We can talk training.
I would love that.
Um, yeah, I do have to wrap up here soon. Actually, there's a lot more we have to talk about, so we'll have to get you back for a second episode here. Um, yeah, anything else you wanted to add, Connor?
It was interesting because you had mentioned like the Watt on the Waves thing.
Yeah,
And, it's a company that still technically exists. Our second cruise was shut down by our cruise line because of COVID in 2020. But that was one of those things that kind of led into what I'm good at. And it isn't necessarily, I think obviously like the technical coaching side of things throughout time, but also like that ability and want to have fun. That was taking fitness and putting fun on it. And I think that's what's kind of brought me to where everything is today, whether it's the celebrity training side of it, whether it's the, nightclub fitness, whether it is, throwing charity workout slash parties for like fitness. It's like that's the main thing. It's like giving people something that they want to go to, not something that they need to go to. Like people need to go to the gym, but what can you do to make them want to go to the gym? Can you take down all the seriousness of the gym a little bit to get a little bit more participation? Maybe that person's not going to see results quite as fast. But if you're going to get them to have a little bit more fun in the gym, it's like, is that better? Is that optimal? I don't know if the answer is right or wrong, but so far in my career and where I'm at now, I've seen a lot of success from it. And I may be the anomaly. I may just have had the right connections and people willing to vouch for me. But that's kind of what it's about. Is it's having fun. It's creating a good atmosphere, and like what you just said, it's like knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we can. We'll have you back because I want to talk more about Big Night Fitness, WODs on Waves, all these other things you've kind of been doing. Talking about Connor's a celebrity trainer too, so I want to know more about all that stuff too. Um, and just to put the bow on this one too, for people doing fitness, like maybe CrossFit isn't for you, uh, but finding what you're going to do. So someone actually asked me this the other day of um, hey, she has a meet coming up, and it's like, hey, I gotta start cutting weight. Should I start walking or running more? And I was like, well, which one are you gonna do more? Because they're both good, but as far as exercise goes, like walking has plenty of health benefits, so does running. But if you getting on a treadmill, running for 10 minutes and having a horrible experience with it, and isn't as good as you getting out and walking, if you can walk 30 minutes, the one you can enjoy more and you can repeatedly do is probably going to be the one that's better for you. Maybe that is CrossFit. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's Barry's Boot Camp. Maybe it's Architect Fitness. I don't know. But just something people need to keep in mind too with like choosing an exercise thing. Like you shouldn't, yes, you need to go to the gym, but you should also want to find something that you want to go to day in, day out um, to some caliber.
Yeah, and I think when gyms create communities like that, it kind of it holds on to those passions a little bit longer. It's not every day I've wanted to go to the gym, but when I have other people that are relying on me and I know that there's like that community aspect, sometimes the community aspect is what's bringing me through my workouts. Sometimes the last thing I want to do is go to the gym, do, back rack lunges and deadlifts, which is what we did this morning. But knowing that I had three other people that were super stoked to be there, like use their motivation to continue going through. And I don't think it has to be like, hey, CrossFit's not for you, or hey, Architect Fitness isn't for you. It's like, try it out. Give it a go. I would rather have someone do CrossFit one day a week, being like, it's my Friday class, and then do other things that they're enjoying or loving than have them not do it at all. For sure. It's like, try it out, try different gyms. I always encourage people to do new things. And that's kind of Big Night Fitness is. It's like, I'll highlight anyone. You want to come in, and if you think it'd be a little bit tough to do Olympic weightlifting at the Grand or Big Night Live. However, I
Yeah,
mean, not completely out of the question.
let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had Chad Vaughn doing Olympic lifting seminars with PVC pipes on the pool deck of a cruise ship. So you never know what's in the cards. So, um,
Yeah,
but I love it. I want to come by your gym for sure. I'm gonna be happy to come back on here. Would love to have you at
yeah,
on my podcast, but definitely want to come by and there's a lot I can learn from you that will help me in CrossFit. So
hell yeah,
really
same.
cool.
This is definitely informative too for me. Of like, I guess I didn't have a great idea of what lens CrossFit was looking through completely,
Mhm.
um, and I definitely have gained more respect for that just through this conversation here. Of like, okay, that all makes sense, and maybe application wise, we don't always see it to that perfect piece, but the way you've stated it and laid it out for me, it makes sense. Um, and there's a lot of respect for it. Sometimes, it gets shit on a lot, but like, I'll end with a closing story here is like, 2 years ago, I'll never forget this is I had a woman come in. She was uh, probably 250 pounds. She'd already lost 80 pounds. She'd never worked out a day in her life. She was a computer programmer, sat at a desk and was a gamer her whole life. And um, she was like, hey, I just lost 80 pounds. I've been doing CrossFit. but I keep getting hurt and this and that. Um, but I started doing this. I've lost this weight. I'm no longer diabetic. I finally bonded with my son, who I haven't been able to bond with. We're doing this. He's lost 100 pounds and he was like 15. She's like, but I need PT to get back to CrossFit. And, her movement was so poor and everything, but she wanted to keep doing this. And like, we just went to, um, we went down on the training floor because my office and the gym are in the same space. So I got her out on the floor and I'm teaching this lady just how to snatch less bad, right? How to stop
Yeah.
cranking on her shoulders and snapping things out of place. And Dan, who's one of my better Olympic lifters, he's actually like my OG lifter. He's like looking at me like, have you lost your fucking mind? What are you doing with this lady? Like, this is who you're trying to put on the weightlifting team now? And he's like looking at me and I know what he's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he comes over to me after. He's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, this lady has no business doing this. I was like, no, she does. And this is why. Like, this was such a life-changing thing for her. And I like told him, and he's like, oh, wow. Like, that's amazing. And it really is. And like, that's the cool part of like seeing that with someone, working through them with it and getting them back there as a really rewarding experience. So it must be cool to be in that, and definitely something, I'm still trying to be a weightlifter over here, but I'm veering away from that. So maybe I'll try some, I do want to learn more about CrossFit. I need to get my body a little more limber and mobile these days. So, but
Here's what we'll do. When I'll come to your gym
all
and
right.
we will do an Olympic lifting CrossFit workout. You can choose from it if it's going to be Grace 30 clean and jerks for time, Isabel 30 snatches for time at 135, and it doesn't have to be a certain time. You can take
Yeah.
as much time as you want during it. But
Okay.
there's so many different. There's a workout Randy, which is 75 snatches for time at 75 pounds,
Ooh,
and
okay.
you're like, I'm an Olympic lifter. That's going to be easy. And then at like 30, when your legs are straight, when you're going down to the deadlift because your quads are so exhausted, you're like, well, now I'm just doing kettlebell swings with this thing. And
Yeah.
it's fun to see, but obviously and dosed appropriately, right? Sometimes people give a little too much too soon, too fast because they either want to see the results or they don't know better for positioning. So I think we can all learn a lot from each other, especially with how technically complex these Olympic lifts are. So
Yeah.
much respect for you and everything that you're doing with that. And there's definitely times where I'm like, we should have once a week. And a lot of gyms do this. They have Olympic lifting specialists come in and teach these classes
Yeah.
for people that want to get better at that, because then you can increase your loading and you can increase your power output. And then overall get a lot more fitness gains across the table because you're able to move better.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what we do a lot with the PT side. It's like, oh, you PR'd? Yeah. Your ankle moves better. Your shoulder moves better, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
makes
Go
sense.
figure.
Yeah.
Straight lines are strong lines, right?
Yeah. Um, so what do you put up for numbers, Connor, on the snatch and clean and jerk?
Oh gosh. I mean, how much do I weigh? I mean, I don't, it just doesn't matter. Like, so the most I've ever snatched 275, and I've been able to hit that pretty consistent.
Whoa, whoa,
Um,
whoa. We're talking in kilos here, pal.
oh gosh.
I'll get the calculator up.
You should know CrossFitters can't do kilo math. There was actually really funny at one of the open announcements was overseas and they loaded the bar up with kilos and no one knew until after the workout that it was the wrong weight on the bar. So the
Yeah.
scores of these girls who just did the open workout didn't count. It
Yeah.
was terrible.
So that's a
Um,
125 snatch. That's pretty impressive.
and then 325 is the most I've clean and jerked. Now, granted, I've cleaned more than that, and granted, I've jerked more than that. But putting those things together, that's the stars aligning for me.
Okay. You get some good numbers there, pal. So I'll definitely be slower than you on this workout, especially since I don't do CrossFit, but that's all right. It's all
I was
about
gonna
being
say,
humbled.
what's your 5K time?
45 minutes? No, I don't know. It's like walking.
5K? You're like 5K on a bike? 5K in
Well,
a car? 5K in
I'd
a
walk
car?
I'd walk the 5K
Minutes.
every day. I just want to run it every day. So I don't know. So, all right,
So,
man. Thank you for coming. What? Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say maybe that's the introduction to CrossFit. When you walk your 5K, you time it, and then the next time, all you have to do is get a little bit faster, and then then we're getting fitter. Maybe you just have to
Yeah,
run the last 10 steps.
maybe that's a good point. Or the first 10, and then I'll just slow down after that.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's been great having conversation with you. I love how you can kind of generalize and more so like get like more of a thesis out of the stuff that I'm saying and kind of say it back to me to make sense. So
Yeah.
appreciate everything, man.
Yeah. Conor, where can people find you?
If you are looking for me on social media, personally, it is at Conor T Murphy, CONORTMURPHY. The company is at Big Night Fitness. That's BIGNIGHT and then fitness. And then I also have some other accounts, Big Night Training, which is a lot of the celebrity training that we're doing, some of the artists, and then professional athletes that I work with on there. So really, any of those channels, please feel free to DM me, send me an email, any of that stuff. If people have any questions, I will always get back to you. It may not be at that very, very moment, but if you send me a message, I'll always get back to you and give you as much help as I can. With anything, with any guidance that I have that is in my province of things to give feedback on.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I have no idea who's coming on for our next episode yet. So stay tuned.